After several years, my trusty old Wi-Fi access point from Syxel finally gave out. That meant I had to start looking for a new access point. Being a somewhat of a tinfoil hat, I wanted a router that supported OpenWRT, since it is an open source and that is what I'm currently running in my other devices in the house. Here's how my installation went. So what exactly is OpenWRT? It is an open source Linux-based operating system mainly targeted for embedded networking devices like routers and Wi-Fi access points. You usually install it over the existing firmware on the device so that it takes full control over it. The default version of it has all the features that you can expect from a networking operating system: DHCP, DNS server, support for all Wi-Fi standards up to Wi-Fi 6, a web interface, and more. It also has a clean web interface if you are not into that terminal stuff. OpenWRT supports a ton of different devices from manufacturers like TP-Link, Asus, Syxel, and Ubiquiti. Raspberry Pi and other single-board computers are also supported. So why install custom firmware for your router? I personally think what it comes down to is the trust toward device manufacturers. I do not feel comfortable running software in my home network from some of these manufacturers. Especially these networking devices, since they pretty much always have an access to internet and I have no idea what kind of telemetry or other data they send to the manufacturer. I acknowledge that I might be a bit too paranoid about this, but you just never know. Mind you, that since custom firmware is third-party developed, it may not have as good support and user experience as the original manufacturer firmware. That's why you should read up online on other people's experiences with your particular device and firmware. I did some comparisons online and I ended up purchasing a TP-Link Archer C6 version 3 access point, also known as AC1200 for some reason. It has a dual-core MediaTek processor, 128 MB of RAM and 4 GB Ethernet ports. It has great OpenWRT support and it was one of the recommended devices for it. I have to admit that price was also a factor in this decision. This model was readily available and costed me around 40 euros or around $50. Opening the retail box, we get the standard assortment of items. A tiny yet thick quick start guide in all languages imaginable, a sheet of toilet paper masquerading as a warranty information card. Power adapter is a standard EU plug version with a barrel plug on the other end. I would have preferred a USB-C or micro USB version, but I guess you can't have everything. Underneath the device itself is yet another quick install guide, this time in English and looks like a poster. I will probably not hang that on my wall. And then we get a short Ethernet cable, as is standard in these sorts of devices. Not bright yellow as they usually are though. Then the device itself. It feels pretty plasticky, but that is to be expected for this price range. It's got 4 good size antennas with multiple adjustable options. The back of the device is fairly standard. We got a power button, power slot, WAN port, 4 GB LAN ports and a reset switch. Now that we have the device unboxed, it's time to look into installing OpenWRT. First, we need the firmware file that gets installed in the device. Downloading it is super simple. Just go to OpenWRT homepage and search for Archer C6 V3. Scroll down to section called Installation and Firmware is right there, under Firmware OpenWRT install. This file needs to be then uploaded to the router. We also need to temporarily hook up the router so that we can access the web interface and install custom firmware. So to do that, just plug in the provided Ethernet cable to the first LAN port on the device and the other end to your computer. We should then be able to access the web interface on the default IP address. When first powering on the Archer, we need to set up some defaults like admin password and the like. These settings don't really matter since we will be overriding the whole system with our custom firmware. Once we are in, let's head on to firmware upgrade page. In here, browse your computer and select the firmware file we just downloaded. Then click upgrade and let the device do its magic. This takes around 2 minutes, so go get some coffee. We are almost done here. Once it's finished and it has rebooted, you should be able to access OpenWRT web interface on the default IP address again. Log in as root without a password and we are done. Once you are inside OpenWRT, there are a ton of settings and statistics to look at. This video is not meant to be a showcase of OpenWRT, but here are a couple of pointers. You should definitely change the password to be something unique. While inside, you can also change the hostname of the device, so you can easily differentiate your network devices, especially if you have multiple OpenWRT installations, since their web interfaces look alike. Do also note that Wi-Fi is disabled by default on OpenWRT, so if you want to use it, be sure to enable it in the settings, both 2.4 and 5 GHz versions. Lastly, this is purely optional, but I wanted my Archer to be a so-called dumb access point, meaning it has no NAT, no DHCP, no firewall. It just passes all the requests straight to my main router. Luckily, OpenWRT has a page in their wiki about setting up a dumb AP. So go check that out if that's what you're looking for. And we are done setting up our custom OpenWRT access point. Here's the final location of the device in my garage. I have to say that the installation process was way easier than I expected. I've previously had to use some weird serial cables to telnet to the device, or I have had to restart the device multiple times with some button combination held on and so on. This was super easy and fast installation, so props to OpenWRT and maybe TP-Link for making their firmware upgrade software so insecure, I don't know. After shooting this video, I've been using the device for a couple of days now and it has worked great. I get good signal and the speeds are fast between my laptop and my NAS. So that's all for this video. Thank you for watching and on to the next one.